Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another session on XRMust with two new guests. Guests you know because we wrote about them. We met with them previously in 22-21, and I'm glad to welcome Victoria Bousis first. Hello, Victoria.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
And welcome, Gayatri.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
It's a very European panel because I'm in Paris and you're in Berlin and Athens, right?
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Today's topic is about capturing real events through VR and to discuss the many ways we can do that, because it's quite obvious to say that we want to capture reality in VR, blah, blah, blah. But when we address some serious topic and issues, it's very interesting to see how the grammar and the vocabulary of VR is used through real-time softwares to 360 documentaries to interactive pieces and etc. And I both discussed with you your project previously, and I was very impressed the way that you can embrace everything and we can achieve to put in front of the audience so many different kind of VR piece. Maybe the first step will be to introduce, to present and to introduce every project. Maybe Gayatri, do you want to start and to explain to us what was your last work?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Matthew, for organizing this panel and for all the great work that you do anyway. Yeah, I'm really happy to be part of this panel. My name is Gayatri Parameswaran. I am co-founder of Now Here Media, which is an immersive storytelling studio. We are based in Berlin. We are an interdisciplinary team of artists, coders, programmers, installation artists, designers, and so on, and storytellers, of course. And one of our main missions is to kind of, tell stories that can have some kind of impact, societal impact, that can move the needle when it comes to change, social change. So we work at the intersection of storytelling, impact, and technology. And I can say that it's a very juicy intersection to be working in this space. The last project that we did together in partnership with Meta VR for Good is from Ukraine, and it's called You Destroy, We Create. And it's a 360 film. It's an immersive video that combines 360 video, 180 video, as well as some CG animation. The topic that we are dealing with is that of the threat to art and cultural heritage in Ukraine as a result of the Russian invasion, the full-scale invasion, and what is happening on the scene in Ukraine as a response to this. So we meet with some very inspiring people on the ground who are working to preserve cultural heritage, who continue to create art in the face of destruction. And we are on the ground in Ukraine to do this. So I, along with my co-director, Felix, who unfortunately cannot join me today because he is ill. He's down with a flu. And the rest of the team in Ukraine, as well as our, camera person from Berlin, we traveled to Ukraine in the summer of 2022 when things were a little bit different from what they look like right now. And we traveled crisscross across the country, almost like 4,000 kilometers up and down. And we went from the west of Ukraine to the east of Ukraine, all the way north to the south in Odessa as well, and documented what's happening. And I'll be happy to tell more about this. I don't know, Matthew, if you think this is the right moment to share the trailer, or should we wait for it? Should I share the trailer?
We can share the trailer, and we do hope Felix will recover soon. It was great to talk to him in December about that. Just to say that the project is already available on Meta TV.
Yes, it's available on the Meta Quest TV. So if you go on the Quest TV store and search for Ukraine, you should be able to find the title on your headsets. So I want to show you the trailer of the piece to just kick off.
We'll talk about the fact that you put that online quite fast, and it was an achievement on that.
first hours of the war, you feel like your universe is crumbling under your feet.
Despite the fact that my city is shelled every damn day, I'll continue to draw as long as I'm alive.
This is imperial thinking. Nothing better can exist in Russia itself.
Yeah, so that was the trailer of the piece. I think we'll dive deeper into how things got made and challenges and opportunities along the way. So for now, that's about the project.
Okay, cool. Victoria, the same thing. Maybe we will talk a bit later about the relationship to Ukraine and etc. But it's interesting to understand how Victoria did another topic, another project regarding basically the same thing, but in so many different ways.
I'm Victoria Bousis. I am the writer, director, and producer of the immersive interactive experience Stay Alive, My Son. It's actually based on a book and true story written by Penya Tai. It's a book that I found while traveling in Cambodia over 10 years ago. I didn't know then that it would change my life so much now and become kind of a symbol of my entire work, I think, as a person, starting in my 20s, in my career as a prosecutor for the Attorney General's, really concerned with human rights, really concerned about telling people's stories and defending and bringing justice to the aggrieved. Later on as a film producer, working heavily in cinema. And then later on in my academic studies at MIT to look at the future of technology and how to bring technology and creative technology into a more future and forward-thinking medium to speak to younger audiences who wanted to be part of a conversation rather than be a passive observer of a story. And I tried VR and it all came together. And at that same time, a lot was happening in Greece with the Syrian refugee crisis, and then obviously with the Ukrainian crisis, which has impacted us and our team. And it just felt to me that this book emerged again, and it emerged in such a profound way that I felt, is there a way where we can use immersive storytelling, where we can put someone in the shoes of this father who now is 80 years old and living in France with his family, and go back in time as we relive a story to allow audiences a moment in his shoes to see what loss between a parent and a child during a forcible separation from the genocide could feel like, and that haunting and that continuous anxiety of where their son could be. Are they alive? Did they make the right choice in abandoning them so that they both should live? And it became such a passion project and such a meaningful project to me. And as I was seeing a lot of these stories unravel and these graphic photos of babies on shorelines, and then what's happening in Ukraine now, I thought that there must be something we can do as creators to have people not just empathize about a story, but truly have compassion. And compassion to me is empathy, but action involved with that empathy, so that when they remove that headset, that they are so profoundly and deeply moved on so many levels that they actually do something about to change the narrative of family separation to one of reunification. So I dive deep into it. In the meantime, I created a company called Yumi, which I did not intend to do originally, to make this project happen here in Greece with an incredible team in the Mediterranean to bring the story to life as we were reliving the Ukrainian war as well, and seeing the separation of so many of my team members as well. And we really wanted to push that envelope. There wasn't a lot of embracement of VR at the time. And it's still kind of a difficult road because there isn't a lot of distribution. But I had made a conscientious choice that I really wanted to tell this man's true story and honor his survival and his story and the story of so many other parents across time in a way that would prove to the market and prove to audiences and prove to also bigger studios that this is a true form of a medium, and it could be a medium that can be expressed. So we really pushed the envelope with graphics. We created metahumans so that you can meet Tai the way I did in France, being 80 years old, and to meet him before you became him and went on to his journey. And it really brought in the intersections as well, like Gayatri, cinema for the cinema using volumetric capture of real actors. It brought in neuroscience. It brought in a lot of programming because we used a lot of extensive and integral game design, artificial intelligence to empower the metahuman. So it was this colliding of so many mediums so that players can also interact with the virtual environment and truly make it an immersive piece that could honor the story of Yatai and so many others. So it's been a beautiful project made with so much love by so many of my actors and my team. And we're just happy to be here and to be able to share it with the world.
Right, thank you. And both projects will be presented at South by with a bit more things.
Should I show the trailer, Matthew, of chapter 1? So we have chapter 1 that went through Venice and a bunch of festivals, and chapter 2 now is going to be at South by Southwest. So I'll show you a quick little video of that. Tap 1 second. Share. So we go full screen with this. This is chapter 1.
Four decades ago, Cambodia suffered one of the worst atrocities of the 20th century. What's less well known is how families here were deliberately and systematically separated, and they are still paying the price today.
Hello, hi. I'm so sorry for showing you the picture of your son.
I am Yatai Pen. Welcome to my home. Take this to protect you on our journey. My memories and thoughts are yours.
We digitally aged your son Nawaf from 6 years old when you last saw him to 18 to 50 years old, the age he would be today. Tai, is it strange to see Nawaf a man?
No. That's not my son. My son is a 6-year-old boy. Is this my punishment for leaving him? Yes. During the Vietnam War, Cambodian boys were radicalized into soldiers and became monsters.
State your name, profession, crime.
You type in civil engineer, living.
You lived by leaving him.
I searched and searched in refugee camps and the Red Cross, all to no avail. Not knowing became my prison. I still think of him, his life, where he would be. I've imagined our conversation if I found him. I would tell him our story. If he looked into my eyes, he would know I abandoned him because I loved him.
Chapter 2. So, just to be clear on that, and that's still one of the most ambitious projects I saw in Venice, and a perfect example of being at the crossroad of video gaming, interactivity, cinema, and extra. So that's why I thought it was very, very impressive. Gayatri, just to understand the thing that your project is a 360 movie, Victoria's is a huge interactive piece, but you also with Felix, you worked on some interactive big pieces like Kusunda and still interested in that field, installation and etc. Can you tell us why you chose 360 for that last project?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, I guess when the war started or the full-scale invasion started in February 2022, which is almost 1 year ago. We, being in Berlin, it was something that was really close by, and we were literally every day we were able to see the changes that were happening. We were feeling the war, we could see, and there were, thousands of refugees who were arriving at the train station, the main train station here in Berlin. And also, having worked together with Felix on this, any European family has a history of war behind it. So his family comes from his parents are refugees actually from Königsberg, which is a Russian enclave. And so all of this kind of, triggered a lot of emotions within the team as well. And we were thinking, okay, how can we respond to this situation? And how can we use our capacity as storytellers and in some ways, working in this medium to evoke a response, something that Victoria was talking about. How can we, affect change and make things happen in this space? And we started brainstorming, and in the beginning, we were thinking of doing a more complex 6-DoF piece, which involved interaction and a lot of photogrammetry. However, when we took the pitch to Meta, one of the very valid feedback that Amy Seidenbaum, who's the executive producer at Meta, something that she said is that the situation is changing so rapidly that she really saw a lot of value in doing something that was really fast in turning things around and could reflect what was going on the ground. And we had worked with her and the team before on another project called Home After War, which was a production from Iraq that was in 2018. So we have a lot of trust for each other, and we realized that, okay, there is actually journalistic value to doing something fast and getting a quick turnaround. And Felix and I, we both have a background in journalism, in conflict journalism. So we are trained in reporting from areas of conflict and hostile environments, and we thought, okay, let's together do something that can actually have impact and that can be fast. So the only thing that could be fast and immersive is a 360 video. But it had its own level of complexity because we had 3 camera systems that we were working with. One was a 360, the Insta Titan, which is kind of a beast in itself. And then we had the new Canon setup, which comes with this dual fisheye lens, which offers really high quality stereo images, which is 180. And then we had a drone system that we were working with, and then which got kind of represented as stereo drone images inside the film. And to be honest, it was challenging mainly because of the amount of data that we ended up kind of generating in the 2 weeks of filming. We came back with like 15 terabytes of data, which is a lot. to just kind of manage and wrangle, and the amount of sleepless nights that we had to make sure that everything was copied 3 times over. So that was one of the biggest challenges. Which also kind of, we filmed in August 2022, and the piece was out in November 2022, which is a very fast turnaround for kind of 8K, processing 8K images, and also considering that there are some 3D animations in the piece. And I completely agree. Like, in hindsight, I think it was the best thing that we could have done is, brought out something that was really timely. And then at the end, in Davos in January 2023 now, just last month, we were able to show a shorter version of the piece to high-level executives. And that's something, that's what we want to do with the piece in the future as well, to be able to speak to policymakers and decision makers. Something we've actually consistently done with a lot of our previous work is to reach people who have the power to make decisions. And again, what Victoria, you spoke about, like the medium is so exclusive in itself because of the constraints in who owns the hardware. Who can you reach with that is, very much defined by you being able to bring it to the people who can make a difference. And if we, normally we work with kind of this impact strategy where we identify people who can have an impact on the situation at the policy level and then try to reach them. So our previous works have shown at the United Nations, and at other kind of policy meetings. Sometimes it's just a room full of people who are like important people who are able to make decisions and change things that we go and approach. So that's the same thing we want to do with You Destroy, We Create as well. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks. Just to say that today we can, in a few months, put a quality project online and to share it, but that the 360 video is still, I think, very important and also very easy to access. Victoria, you had this kind of mindset while you directed and produced Stay Alive, My Son. Like, did you imagine the kind of audience you will reach and how you will distribute, but also how did you produce the whole thing, which is, again, quite impressive?
I didn't. I thought about 360 video at the time because we had done some early stuff with 360 video, but I really wanted to do something different because it wasn't a journalistic piece, which I think really lends itself to the medium because I think time is of the essence. I really wanted to break through to create almost an augmented version of filmmaking, to really go in between this idea of high AAA games and then AAA studio cinema, and really show other executives on higher levels of studios of what can be done with the medium, in the hopes of actually having VR filmmakers be included in those conversations, because there's so many incredible films out there, and we love the hero's journey because we all aspire to also be that hero. And I believe that ordinary people who come under extraordinary circumstances become extraordinary. And I think by stepping in the shoes of some of these ordinary, extraordinary people, I think, and living that journey, I think it can also inspire us as people to elevate to that state. And by going through that hardship, you can see what this man went through in a more visceral way, in a more sensory way, while also educating. And I really wanted to open up that doorway during our user testing, which has been extensive because, players have a choice to do anything, and you can lift anything, you can move in any direction. I found out that a lot of younger people didn't really know that this actually even happened to Cambodia. There's a loss of history because of the loss of that kind of engagement. So I said, what is a medium that speaks to younger generations, which makes them so engaged and so involved and involves him in that conversation, right, in a very active way to do that. So I really wanted to speak to them in that manner. So I think our distribution plan for Stay Alive, My Son, this more like, higher end version, this AAA version, would probably lend itself more to Steam and to those kinds of forums for the time being. I know Apple is going to be releasing, hopefully, their new VR headset in the coming, I believe next year. It's been pushed back a little bit. And then Sony PlayStation. So I want to kind of involve this into it. So it's a little bit outside of the pure gaming scenario. But to Gayatri's point, we have an impact mission also associated with it, obviously working with the International Red Cross and UNHCR and a bunch of groups. Bringing this piece to them is difficult because you need the big computer, you need the headset, you need all that. So we're looking into possibly creating a film version of it, which will be the first of its kind, but also potentially doing the 360 kind of video approach to it inside the game engine, because I think immersion is the key element to this, right? And it makes it easier to share. So that is something that we're looking into, to be able to give people of influence, people of power, people in those positions, the opportunity to experience one night in one of these parents' shoes. So I think that is kind of our next path, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah. One of my big questions in such project is, how do you address the audience in terms of immersion at some point, but also interactivity? Because when you talk about war, about that kind of difficult topic, it can be sometimes violent, sometimes very direct. Your project, Victoria, is interactive in a way that you need to go deep into the story. You need to have some choice at some turn around. How did you think about that? How did you choose to put the user directly in the situation?
So when the interactive portion is a big part of it, but what I found between chapter 1 and chapter 2, there were some technical issues that we had to iron out that we did for chapter 2, is what is the balance between interaction and immersion? Because we found out that once we use puzzles, a little bit more sophisticated interactivity, what ends up happening is the brain shifts and the focus becomes a more logical focus. What do I have to do next? And that automatically takes you out of that emotional state, which is so needed for something immersive with a purpose-driven message, to stay in that shoes of that person and feel that angst and feel that emotional buildup. So what we had to do is revisit that, and we ironed out the issue we had with one of our pipelines. So now there are no puzzles. So you are in that emotional state, which was the most critical thing for me and the biggest takeaway also. So it was kind of a learning curve for me, because there is a very, very distinct balance between interaction and immersion. The other thing we did is we used a very interesting way with a flashlight, that you actually use a flashlight around the area. So it's kind of dark. So it really puts you in that mood, because when you fall through that floor, you go inside his mental prison. So it's very metaphorical. And by flashing certain things, you find out information about the culture, about the history, about how Cambodia was, what happened with the various ideologies. And you're actually moving the prison doors open. So there's a creaking happen. And with the use of spatialized sound, it's an incredible, incredible and powerful tool to actually start getting that person in that state of fear, in that state of angst, in that state of unknowingness. And then, of course, when you exit his mental prison and you breathe for the first time, and you don't have that claustrophobic feeling of being in that prison, and you're flying on this magical branch towards his metaphorical heart, you start to soar. You actually start to feel those feelings, and we really wanted to play with that emotional curve of taking a player, up, to bring him back down, bring him back up, to create this element of surprise, but also the emotional cues that we wanted to address that were so true to this man's journey. And at the end, of course, which is chapter 2, is kind of his path from redemption was chapter 1. and chapter 2 is his forgiveness and his salvation, when he realizes that it wasn't really about finding his son or whether he did the right thing. The question is that he survived, and through his survival, the memory of his family, his story survives, and he becomes a voice of hope and inspiration to others of what can be done because of these circumstances. So it becomes a very introspective piece, as it is also a very visceral and sensory piece.
Yeah, and it strikes me that how you are able to show some kind of violent ambience and to guide the user through that. And that's a bit the same question with you, Gayatri. Is like you told me when we did the first interview that you chose not to go to the front line. You chose to go and get testimonies from arts people on the background of the thing, even if you were with your bulletproof vest and trying to avoid some difficulties. But was that obvious not to show the blood as we discussed?
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I think it was very clear from the beginning that our mission was really, I think throughout my career as a kind of a, also in my younger days when I was a reporter, like a war reporter, it never excited me to go as much on the front line, but to actually talk to people behind the front lines and see how civilian lives are affected. Because the situation on the front line is very, very fragile in the sense that, and it changes all the time. And it takes, strategically, if you focus on the military lines and if you say, okay, today, the Ukrainian side was able to move this much further and tomorrow the Russians were able to move that much further. It doesn't, I think personally for me, it didn't let me understand too much of what was happening on the situation and what was happening in the war. And rather, it made me more curious about how were people's lives affected because of the war and looking at the humanitarian situation. My interest also in this ongoing conflict was kind of similar, and our focus at this point was looking at really being artists, being people who work in the cultural sphere. It was also an intrinsic motivation to see how culture is being affected. Most museums in the country were closed at the time. They had brought their collections to a safe space or a bunker and closed their activities, closed their doors. There were, however, still activities ongoing in the basements in the museums where it was possible. And in itself, it shows kind of a bittersweet story when we talk about the museums, like on the one hand, one of the storytellers in our piece, Katerina, she's the curator of the Odessa Museum of Western and Eastern Art. And, her job throughout was to show art, and now it's to hide art. So that's an intrinsic change. It's like a 180-degree shift in how she changed her role right after the full-scale invasion. And at the same time, other creators and artists that we profiled, like the street artist Gamlet in Kharkiv, he continues to create art in the face of destruction. He's painting the walls of Kharkiv not knowing if there was going to be a bomb falling the next day. It will destruct the art that he's creating, but he doesn't care. He will keep painting. And this shows a sense of resilience or a sense of fighting back by using his art as a tool to fight back. It's not only with guns that they are fighting. And another thing that is really important in this conflict or what's happening, the Russian invasion, one of the justifications for the Russian invasion is that is the denial of the Ukrainian existence or the Ukrainian identity, right? And that is really tied to culture. And therefore, culture becomes one of the main grounds on which this war is being fought. And in order to really understand the war, it became important to understand the importance of Ukrainian culture. And to do that, we didn't have to go to the front line. We didn't have to show the live fighting. We had to actually meet Ukrainians, show the art they are creating, show the culture that is Ukrainian culture and what makes it unique and different from Russian culture. So I think that really kind of emphasized our, like, why we didn't have to show any violence. And the techniques that we used were also varying, or it was kind of a mixed media approach, where we have the 180 footage when we wanted to direct people a little bit more and focus their attention to something. This 360 images allowed them to kind of explore the space and be free to look around when they were fully immersed. And the drone images were when, those were kind of bird's eye view of destruction, especially when we were showing kind of targeted destruction by the Russian army. So you would have the drone flying kind of through pastures and green forests, and then you have a museum that has been bombed, which was clearly targeted, and there is no other object of military importance around it. So it kind of becomes evidence in this, in this war. And we had animations to kind of fill in the gaps of things that we couldn't film. So there is a sequence in the basement that's something we couldn't film, because normally when we were running to the basement at night, we didn't take our equipment with us. We just went, got out of bed and went. So we didn't have, the time to really film in the basement. So that's how we kind of differentiated between the different formats and the different media that could convey people, or put people in give people different opportunities to explore the piece.
Yeah, and it's a pure documentary piece. But maybe Victoria, if you want to answer the same thing, that's on your side, you chose to add some fantastic or magical kind of spirit on some part of your project. Was that necessary to get a lighter mood, or to get some more involvement from the user, aside from the war and etc. and the family issues?
Well, I think for me, I think it's like, what is the purpose you're trying to serve with a new medium, right? The one purpose was that kind of compassion about family separation and family reunification. But the other element is why wouldn't I just do a traditional film then? Go shoot, pin, do a traditional film if I wanted to do that. I think my purpose was very distinct, and my purpose was to go to places that film cannot go. And this is, I think, the true, use of VR is, how are we using the medium and pushing it forward in its truest sense, and honoring that medium and using the power of it. And so with something like the Unreal Game Engine, which is what we built it on, I really wanted to give you that Alice in Wonderland moment where you go from the ordinary world and you go inside his mental prison, and you're seeing kind of what's happening in his mind, that he has put himself inside a mental prison in this labyrinth of ways in which he's constantly re-experiencing moments of the past, while subconsciously his inner demons are actually speaking to him and kind of taunting him, because that does happen. So how do you show that on film without actually experiencing it? I really wanted to push the medium to show the potential of the medium. And then, of course, as we find our salvation, people's heart hurts at a certain place because it hurts there. And I think there is where we keep, those hurtful memories. But at the end, what keeps you kind of waking up in the morning and going for more is what inspires you. And, for me, my inspiration comes from my family as well. It comes from the people that I love, and things that I cherish. And I think for this man, that one photo he has of his kid is those photos and those happy memories, going to the beach and going to the stuff that gave him reason to continue. And for me, it's, our heart in so many ways is this temple. So I matched that temple with the temple of Angkor Wat, which is in Cambodia, which is the biggest, a Buddhist temple in Southeast Asia, which a lot of people go for spiritual pilgrimages there to seek salvation. So I really wanted to connect it with actual places that underscored the meaning of the project. The prison is modeled after S21, which is the camps, actual camps in Cambodia. So everything is from a research standpoint, a journalistic standpoint, a historical standpoint, taken from real places, but shown in a way and experienced in a manner that really talks about this man's internal struggle, both on a mental way, that, you know, how our mind plays these horrible tricks on us, but also in a inspirational way from a place of purity and of heart. So I said, okay, let's use this engine and see what we can do with it. And there were a lot of crashes, there were a lot of bugs, there were a lot of optimization issues. But ultimately, frame rate was an issue, obviously, as you know that, not making users sick while they're experiencing this. But ultimately, I think we accomplished it. And I'm really honored that I took the harder road to do it, because I think it's something that I haven't seen in the market. And I think it's something that's going to open up a lot more creativity and a lot more of the use of this medium for this purpose, in this more creative kind of, you know, fantastical and surreal way.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that we saw so many different pieces in Venice, for example, last year, and there was some mature rock like that. Do you think today we have enough tool to create in XR, meaning that we're using like real-time engine from the game industry, we're using animation, mocap, 3D sounds, and you're both deeply involved in using such many layers of creation to achieve what you want to do. And I have the thing that the non-fiction genre in VR is using so many new tools that it's a totally new way to, as you said, why don't I do a film? But no, I'm going to do a VR piece because it's interactivity. It's a lot of things actually. Do you think today we have maturity of creation that way with so many tools?
Yeah, I think it's changing in so many ways, because I think the role of a director and a creator is also changing, you know, and almost to use the tools, you almost have to become a technologist in so many ways. And once you're not scared to take that leap and to go into this unknown territory, I think a lot of interesting tools are available to do this thing. For instance, you know, we use volumetric capture because I thought that I wanted you to feel the spirit of the essence of a human being, you know, from this family by using real actors to bring the family to life, as if they're actually living inside of him. So that was a conscientious and a creative choice. And luckily, volumetric capture was our tool. We used a Houdini pipeline because there was no Unreal plugin for Gaedtke at the time, because in my mind, I saw it as surreal, almost paintings inspired by the little boys' paintings. So you actually, in chapter 2, you actually walk through these memories. So they feel almost ghost-like. So it really gives this feeling of how we experience memories. So that was another tool that we used. And then obviously the metahuman technology was a bear to wrestle with. And I can show you a video a little bit later whenever you want. That was very difficult because we started using metahumans very early on, and no studio had ever used a metahuman in VR. Not alone for that, but when you're using the metahuman software, we couldn't get the likeness of Ty to actually resonate who he was. And so I said, guys, let's go for it. So we started developing a whole new pipeline, not to break the facial structure of it, because there's like 893 bones in the face that you can't break in order to model, because I felt like you really had to meet this man, how he really was, to honor also him as a person. But then we really wanted to push that envelope to almost, you know, make you question, is this a human being that we're actually interacting with? Because so many people in the experience, they actually like want to embrace him. They actually feel a human quality. And the metahuman technology, because of the elaborate bone structure, because of the elaborate rigging, and because of the way the animations are used with motion capture, it really lends itself to very human kind of gestures that are not in the uncanny valley. They're not in that robotic kind of sense. We use some artificial intelligence as well, so that he actually follows you as you speak to him. You haven't seen this, Matthew, but this is in chapter 2. So the entire time he's speaking towards you. And that's what kind of tips the scale, because, you know, connection is how we communicate as human beings. So I really wanted to underscore the connection. So I think it's a question of what are you trying to do? And then are you brave enough, bold enough, and have the patience enough to learn how to use the tech and deal with the peaks and valleys. But there's a lot of great stuff, and I can't wait to put the project in Unreal 5 when that's going to be capable, because using real-time lighting on something so surreal like this is going to become, I mean, I think it's going to become pure magics, you know. So do you want me to show the metahuman stuff briefly now?
Yeah, sure. And I will, we have Gayatri the same thing after. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Hopefully I can do this. I could do this right again. It's the easier stuff are harder, like Zoom sometimes is more challenging than doing metahumans. And so, okay. So this is our metahuman stuff, and you'll see kind of, so this is the real Pinyatai, and this is the complex rig system in the face, the 830 bones that you can't break when you're sculpting, or else you break actually the ability for it to move correctly. We use Marvelous Designer to bring the clothes to life, so that there was like a physics element to them, and when like in the way in which he moved. Hair is very difficult because every strand of hair reflects light, so we had to use variations of different approaches. I think we used 6 different approaches to get in this way. And then in terms of the eyes need to be realistic, so we use a specialized water shader on the eyes, and you'll see if this one shows it, you know, even up to eyelashes creates kind of the human parts. We wanted to show the element of time and his story on his face, on his wrinkles, so that you actually felt that. Same thing with the player has his hands, so his hands bear, you know, the scars of his past, so to speak. So that is our metahuman.
All right. Gayatri, same question is even for 360 film, you're using so many techniques and yeah, as you said, cameras and etc., drones and etc. But even for Kosunda, shooting in Nepal, you went there just before the pandemic with so many ideas and techniques. How do you feel about that? The non-fiction can get like better with XR.
Yeah. No, I'm yeah. Talking about Kosunda again, we had like we used a range of techniques. So photogrammetry was kind of the basis of the set. So we were, you know, that was kind of the home in which you kind of moved around. And then we filmed volumetric video, as you mentioned, Matthew, kind of in the mountains of Nepal, like with generators, and it was quite tough conditions under which we were able to film that. And then we had 3D animations in space, and then mocap was kind of powering these 3D animations. And then we used some neural networks for speech recognition and AI. So it was a range of techniques, and you know exactly what Victoria says, like you just have to be so okay with a very steep learning curve, and also to say you must be crazy. I don't know any other reason why people would do that. Like, you're just crazy. I think we are all crazy to be doing that, because I do think that with nonfiction, you could make a film, reach way more. You know, my parents always ask me, why, you know, when can we see your work? Why are you doing it in a medium that we are never able to see? Because they live far from me, they live in India, and they can only see the things that I do once a year when I go there and set it up for them and show it to them. And they have no idea why I do what I do. Also, sometimes I wonder, why are we doing it? Why are we making our lives so hard? But I do think that there are some insights in, like some moments of inspiration that give me enough reason to do it. And so with Kusunda, actually, we did this research with the Anglia-Ruskin University in Cambridge, and we were comparing. We did a film in game engine for Kusunda. So we filmed inside the game engine, and we created a 2D film out of it. And we had some other video material, which put together a 25-minute film. So we compared the 25-minute film with the 25-minute interactive immersive experience. And we did this in different settings and different groups of people. And then we had focus group discussions, which would, where people would discuss both the film and the immersive experience. And this qualitative research clearly showed that what virtual reality is magical in some ways. People used these terms and these words that they felt like they were inside the medium. They felt like they were not merely an observer, but they were actually participating in the film. And this is something, that's really, really important in order, especially for the kind of work that we are doing here and what we are talking about, in order to create change, in order to make people act, make people feel empowered. It's great if you work with a medium that is participative. It's great if you work with a medium that makes them feel like they are actually doing something in the environment. They are affecting change in the environment, so that when they take out the headset, they feel that that's possible in real life too. So, these kind of things, like the questions that we ask ourselves, we try to also ground it scientifically and understand, okay, what is different about the medium? Why is it so interesting to work in this medium, and what does it unlock? What kind of potential does it have?
We did a similar study, I think, when I was at MIT, just because I needed to prove it to myself too, right? Like, is this really for real? And we used a biometric device to capture biometrics to see kind of what were those emotional cues and how the body was physically reacting from a neurological standpoint because of the immersion. And it is quantifiable. Like the starking difference between a passive 2D medium versus an immersive one is the data is there. So I think, to your point, it definitely hits those elements for sure. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. It's quite interesting. Maybe last part of our discussion is what's next for you both, except South by. Can you tell us a bit of what's going on with the current project and what's the next step for you? Maybe Victoria, if you want to start first.
Sure. So our next step is South by Southwest, which is going to be world premiering Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. And we're very excited about it because it's nice to now experience the happiness, of this man and the elation, because we've had people on suspense of this like kind of darker, more, more intense a story. And I really wanted to close it up in that highlight. And then I believe it's going to go off and go to the various festivals and, UN, Davos, all those kinds of things. We're aspiring to do that. We're looking into the movie version of that because I'd like to release it either on maybe a Sony kind of Apple situation so that more people can access the story. Because at the end of the day, we can use the technology, but the bottom line is for a lot of people to see the story. We hope to find the boy if he's still out there. We've had a local mission about that with special forces, changing the narrative family separation through policy making. And so if I can get that story out to more people, I'm happy to do so. And then outside of that, I'm actually doing a pretty big fashion project, if that makes any sense. So we're going from Cambodian genocide to this incredible fashion project to bring people into a different world that speaks about women and speaks about empowerment, and through a very interesting brand who is really interested about pushing the medium forward by using also alternative ways to tell their narrative. So it's going to be an interesting year. I'm really excited, and I mean, let's see what happens. And I'm sure I'm going to see you, Gayatri, in South by Southwest, because you will be there with your project, which makes me so happy to see.
Yeah, so that's basically the next step for You Destroy, We Create as well. Like the next home is going to be South by Southwest, where we are in the spotlight section. And after that, we continue our impact journey. So we will be showing at different venues and meeting different, ministers of culture, all kinds of policy events and advocacy events, using the piece also as a tool for advocacy. At the moment, there are a few headsets that are circulating in Ukraine as well, kind of having pop-up installations or pop-up exhibitions wherever possible. And I guess we'll do, the good thing, or kind of the good thing about this piece is that it's already online. So anyone who has a headset can view it. And that is such a big relief, to be honest. And that's something that's different from other pieces not all, but a few that we've worked on, which, you have the offline piece and then you're looking for the best kind of home to find where it can live online. And that weight is off the shoulders somehow. It's already, online and people can view it. So that's really, really great and interesting. And apart from that, we're working on a project which is brainstorming for a project about the human brain and what it is capable of and what it does and how much we know about it. And then we are co-producing a project called Ancestral Secret VR, which is co-created together with the indigenous Quero community in Peru, and with Galgo Storytelling, and and a few other things down the pipeline, which we're all really, really excited about.
Yeah, thanks very much. We had a bunch of reaction online, so I'm sharing that on screen. Thanks both of you for your time. I can't wait to see your project in 23 and to watch it again on Meta. Have a great South by, and we will host a bunch of things before Austin, even if I won't be there personally, but enjoy, and thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks, Victoria. I can't wait to see your piece.
Me too. We'll talk offline for sure, I'm sure.
Yeah.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.